Live from the Pathway Studios in Johnston proper. You are live from the Path.
I am a working man. I get things done. Work for the Holy Ghost.
And you're listening to Live from the Path. We're coming from the Pathway Studios here in Johnston proper. It is good to be with you this fine evening.
Yeah, it is.
Hey. No, gone completely. Dang it. I just had some sort of inspiration, and now it's gone. I lost it.
That's depressing.
I know, right? All right, here's what we got going on the show tonight. We were talking this just before the show started. The question is I think we're going to stretch the image here a bit. But like the question is what is the posturing of the shepherd to the sheep when it comes to the sheep's motivation? Like here's the deal: depending on the circumstance, pastors will routinely use either the sheep as like a dumb animal who just kind of wanders the grounds and like has to like literally be taken everywhere and dragged and bandaged and all this business, or the sheep has some sort of inertia and motivation to them of which you're trying to coax them along, but is ultimately kind of they make their own decisions. And I think it's a difficult dichotomy when it comes to trying to help people. And we nailed, I think we talked on this topic a little bit when Robbie and Aaron were here, from 517.
Yeah, Discover Hope
517, right? About how do you help people? Are we snatching people out of fires, right? Are we supposed to be grabbing them and forcing them to do the right thing, because it is their best interest, and they're not making good decisions on their own? Or can you only help people who desire to be helped? Or is the distinction between the two just a matter of efficiency, of which you might have more success doing one or the other, but you're still called to do both? And so I want to talk about that a little bit because, frankly, I think you see that not only in your in witness, right, in attempts to change the world with good news for Jesus and to share good news to people, but I think even in tangible, like walking miles kingdom work, where you're actually trying to help people, and you see people making weird decisions or decisions that you wouldn't make, and you like, there's a question as of how much. How much do you push or pull or tug or try to insert yourself into something? Or do they have to be like, hey, I want your help, and then that's when you can step in? Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your time. And so we're going to touch on that a little bit this week because I think that's a consistent thing with me.
Yeah,
trying to figure out where that lives.
I got more stuff to add in there too because, like, I'll just wait.
Okay.
I'll wait. But I got more.
I'm going to become a Calvinist on this one.
It's going to be a lot easier. I think there's a lot more peace in Calvinism.
Just hey, God didn't choose him.
It's not my deal. He put Kim Jong-un in power. So,
I gave him a Bible. That's right.
And he don't stand for the anthem, so.
All right. So, we may touch on that. I just have, I don't know if it's a unique question, but like, there's just noise there. There's just noise, and I wonder if we have an opportunity to like at least filter through some noise here and like have, I don't even know if I want to have like a discussion of what the right wrong is, but like the question basically is, how do you have the right discussion, right? So like, what are we looking for when it comes to situations like the football players kneeling? How do we have a right discussion? How do we have a healthy discussion? And what does it look like to actually try to get somewhere with them? Because I'll tell you this, my reaction to watching other people react is people are talking about the same thing. Like they're talking about what they want to talk about. Some of them are wrong in that respect, some of them are right in that respect. But like they choose the two or three things that make them right the most. They ignore any context or any that another side might be providing. And then we're just kind of tossing stuff and we're not really having I think the right conversation. So the question is, how do you do that? What do we look for? There's some broad things to look for as people of Jesus that say, if we want to have the right conversation, here's the kinds of things we're going to try to do and look for. So I kind of wanted to talk about that. I also thought it was interesting, and I don't even know if I have a question here, but I was looking at some news stories and I guess I missed this. I missed this in the news, but like KCCI was carrying a story. It said White House dismisses absurd claim that U.S. has declared war on North Korea. I thought, crap, what happened?
Oh yeah, you missed it.
Yeah. Did you guys saw that?
Yeah.
So, and he said, the president said, let's see, the implication was that if they keep talking away, they're talking, Kim Jong-un won't be around much longer. And there's a North Korean diplomat who's taken that as, well, we consider that to be a declaration of war against his country by the United States. And I thought, good night.
Well, okay,
Good
now
night.
hold on. This is a multifaceted deal, right? It's one, North Korea believes a chewing gum placed on a sidewalk is a declaration of war. You know what I'm saying? Like, those guys, I was listening to somebody talk about it today. They have literally said that's a declaration of war like 25 times in the last 5 years over multiple things, right? So, I mean, here's the thing. They're a little hot-tempered anyway, right? But like, I mean, good night. You're going to speak for an entire nation. I mean, I'm begging you to get a speechwriter and parlay to them, right? I'm just begging you to, get your ideas fine-tuned to a flowery man who will edit words out like son of a whatever that you think you're going to use in American public. You know what I'm saying? And like, just get someone you trust that's going to convey the idea, but in a way that's palatable. You know, like, I mean, people just, if you can take Alka-Seltzer and that will help ease your stomach, people will take Alka-Seltzer. But if you're like, hey, eat this brick, it'll do the same thing, you go with the Alka-Seltzer, you know? I mean, just help people take it down a little bit easier. And like, I'm boggled. You deal with a hothead crazy man. North Korea has absolutely, that guy from Korea has absolutely no level of sanity at all.
I should have, well, you wouldn't have read it. I was going to say, I should have shared this article with you guys, but it's very long. And
We would have thought about it.
My experience is you all don't read it. But like, it was like a really long article. A guy went over there and he wanted, it was a journalist and he got access to like some of the military guys, but like wanted to look at, North Korea kind of outside the capital and stuff and like just get a feel for what their country's like. And so anyway, he ended up talking to one of the guys, one of the military dudes, and the way that they view like, history or information, like again, their Eastern cultures have long memories. They just do. They remember things, and like they're remembering it wrongly, at least from our perspective. But the way they look at it is that the Korean War was an American aggression, and they stood up to America, and that's why America left. But that always there's this continued threat of renewed American aggression. In the Korean Peninsula. Basically, they've been stolen from them, right? So they look at themselves as a rightful winner of a Korean War, and that the basic nature of what happened isn't how we would describe the Korean War, right? And so, but their whole foundation of basically where they come from is on that. Like, we saw how America treated Gaddafi. So like we went in there and we pumped money and we supported Gaddafi, and then he ended up dying. And we provided no support. I mean, we shouldn't probably support to him anyway. The man's horrible to his people. He was also a lesser of two evils if you want to be utilitarian about it. And so like, broad scale, they say, well, America says they were gonna, basically not cause problems here, and then we ended up arming people who killed Gaddafi. And so, from a North Korean standpoint, they said, look, America has always been aggressive. They cannot be trusted. Look what happened with Gaddafi. And so, for the honor of our people, we simply will not stand and play the games that America will play with people. And so, we're going to be ready to act in a moment's notice. That's their perspective, right? Some of which is grounded in like a pseudo-reality, some of which is completely false. But like, that's what we're dealing with. And his description of like, how these people think, they described and said, look, you recognize, they think, our president is kind of a hothead who might like go off the rails. And they're like, yes, we recognize that. And they said, your whole country could be wiped out. And they said, but not everybody. Like, their perspective is if 20% survive some sort of reaction here, that's okay. Because they've defended their honor. Because they have, stood up for their people and not allowed an aggressor to otherwise treat them in a certain way. And so it's interesting to hear it from that perspective, not because it changes for the most part anything I think, but like you recognize what people are working with. Like they're working with certain bits of information, a certain understanding of history, a certain sets of data. And like their decisions are coming from that and they sound way more reasonable in that context. And so anyway, the article did a good job of at least understanding where people are coming from. And I don't know what it's like to be a diplomat from North Korea, right? A guy whose job it is to go out into the world and deal with other people. And frankly, I think you're running into that, with some of our diplomats, like, even Tillerson, like having to go out into the world and deal with some of the stuff that our president's saying. Like, he just, he has difficult trying to align that with other things that we might have said or done in the past or whatever. And so, anyway, it's just an interesting perspective, and it just recognizes that, like, people are functioning in their own boxes, Which probably feeds into that NFL conversation, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's also true.
But anyway, I had not even realized such a thing was happening, and I feel like somebody's gonna lob a bomb. Someone just because you're dealing with a guy who is like hair trigger on, hey, America's going to be aggressive. Like he's just going to flip a switch and just say, you know what, I part my hair to the left today, whammo, and he's going to throw something at China or Japan or something.
So I was thinking this a bit, and I don't want to turn this into a big old Trump discussion. It's more about a presidential discussion, right? But like, what do people actually expect out of the president, right? Like, if you'd have found me a couple years ago, I'd have said, look, I just want a guy that's honest, right? Like, even if he's a little rough around the edges, I just want a dude that's honest, that I feel like is not playing some kind of weird political posturing game, But then to a certain extent, like, I just don't know how I feel about a president swearing at people. You know what I'm saying? Like in public, I'm just like, I dig honesty, and like in the back ends of all my friends, it's littered with profanity. It's not like I'm generally offended by bad language, most of the time. But I'm like, do I have a certain picture in my head of what is presidential? You know what I'm saying? Like where I'm irritated by flowery political speeches. Sometimes you'll hear a political speech and it struck exactly the right tone and it said exactly the right thing, but in words that gave people something to gather around and like it held more value just in the way that you presented it, and like I thought even if I like the fact that someone is honest in the way that they're portraying the way they feel, I think I hold the presidential office maybe to a higher standard than that, and I can't figure out exactly where my line is. It's just weird to me,
right? That
I would have a problem with that because generally I wouldn't. I generally appreciate people who swear to just swear and not hide it and act like you don't and be all phony about it. If you swear, swear. And so like but like even something so stupid as for the topic anyway of the standing at the protest when Trump called somebody a son of a whatever. And I'm like, could you just not do that? You gotta fight every fly that comes in the White House front door. You could pay people. You could ignore it. That's what I do in my house.
He does pay people. Well, there's people on staff that speak for him.
It was like the guys that'll talk for him, and he'll come bowling over like out of the back room. And like, what I really meant to say was, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I get it. You don't want to be part of this political mess and whatever. But like, honestly. Sometimes your delivery is just everything, just the way that you present it and walk in a situation and tone a room down and address people like you have respect for them. I'm like, I don't know. I can't decide where my line is on what I actually would want out of a president, right? I don't want a political meandering doofus who just talks in a stupid speak that I can't understand in lofty ways and doesn't actually do nothing. But then on the other hand, I don't want it so real that you're profaning out of the White House, That's too much for me, So I don't know. I don't know exactly what I think there.
You want Joe Biden.
Maybe.
That's who you're after, Mike. Recognize the output of your progress. Friggin' Joe Biden. The everyman.
Yeah. I do. The guy that can't contain himself on national TV.
It's weird that you say that, because like, I would, we were talking about something or other, and it had to do with like places that have levels of, procedure, right? A proper etiquette to say, hey, look, you're going to dress this way. If you're going to do this, you're going to have to wear this certain type of shirt or belt or whatever it is, right? And you think to yourself, like, this isn't really necessary. It's not the core of the issue. But like, there's also a party that says, I kind of value structure and people putting themselves together and saying, hey, this is how we do this type of thing.
Yeah.
And like, I think we don't know how to have a balance of that, in our country. Like, we want honesty, but we want, we do kind of want a sense of, gravitas to things. Like, we don't actually want, you don't actually want, people wearing shorts in the White House, right?
Right.
And you think to yourself, hey, it doesn't matter whether his legs are out, and I know that. And like, I had the same conversation with my grandfather 15 years ago when it came to church, right? I said, what do I care that someone's got shorts on? But then I look at my own kids and I'm like, hey, can we put up something? I don't want to tux and tails here, right? But like, you don't have to wear that dirty shirt to church. Can we put something on here? And I don't know what's driving my balance except for the fact that like, I feel like, hey, we getting together, we don't have to look ridiculous here. But it's not a sense of propriety, right? Like, if there was a guy that stumbled in that, I'd be like, heck yeah.
Right.
And so, and I wouldn't advocate to say you can't wear shorts to church, but like, it's kind of that same thing, is that you want, if the core of the matter says it doesn't matter, but then like once you care about it, you want that you care about it to be reflected in things. But where to call that or what's appropriate to do that is I don't know. That's hard for me. I have a hard time with that.
Well, you want someone who's in leadership to at least sound smarter than you.
Yeah, that's true.
I suppose even if it's phony, right? I just at least want to feel somewhat comforted that somebody's on it.
and the more profanity someone uses, the less educated they sound. They just go, like my third grader talks like that. I mean,
right.
they've grown beyond that, And the same, like we're in shorts around, whatever, in a place that normally you wouldn't see shorts.
Right.
You just go like, I kind of expect a little more out of you.
Yeah.
If you're the president of the United States or, a leader of some national stature like that,
right.
You just expect more.
Yeah, push come to shove, you couldn't say it's wrong.
Right.
But like there is just a level of expectation that says, look, what's Buva? You got to rise above the room with your pants selection if you're going to be the guy teaching.
Right. It makes it feel like maybe they don't understand the weight. Right? Like maybe we've given this position some weight, and like if you understood the weight, then you would dress up to it because the weight existed.
It's like Obama used to always wear like these 1980s mom pants.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, if you're supposed to be the leader of the free world, at least look more manly than me. You're just not doing it.
Yeah, I don't know who they hire. You know what I'm saying? Like to surround them, be like, what do you think of these mom pants I have on? And, oh yeah, that looks good.
You're only here for 4 or 8 years. Let's just do the slacks.
Yeah, let's stick with the standard. Even when you relaxing, it's slacks time. Like we just can't go wrong here.
It's what going back to this to how they speak, right? Like I like truth, but I don't like loss of control. Yeah. I don't respect and this is true for how like people's demeanors or like I don't mind harsh words, I don't mind stern talk, like I don't mind honesty, but like I like it. I respect a sense of control, and when you don't seem to have when there's not a sense of control to your voice, and the things that you're saying or how you're saying it, that makes me start to not trust people. I guess. So that's probably what more so what it is. Like even if you ignore the words themselves, and probably where it comes from, even the reactions to the president. Like again, if you drill them down to the core, shorts are fine, right? Yeah. It's not illegal to wear shorts. If you drill them down to the core, some of the stuff the man is saying, you're like, okay, it's either hyperbole or if you put it in context with everything else, maybe it's all right. But like broadly, I boil it up and I say it feels like a lack of a sense of control here, and I have a hard time with leadership that doesn't have a sense of control.
No, I think that's very true. Actually, like honest, reasoned truth, like that you'd like to even show that you struggle with it, like because when you ignore that the issue actually probably has struggle in there, whatever it is, right? Whatever the thing that we're talking about or whatever the thing we're trying to decide, like it's never that black and white. And like when you're presenting information to somebody, you want to present it as if you did do the struggle. You went through it and this was the best route and this was the truth. And like that's all that most people can't find these days, even with all the especially with all the media outlets, is like you just cannot figure out who's telling you the truth. Everybody has bent it before it's gotten to you, and you're like, if I could just some people are real obvious in the way that they bend and some people ain't. And so you're just sitting there like, I wish I'd have just been there or something, so I could at least take this in whole, and then I could process it. But right now, I'm getting it filtered 7 times already, and it feels like you using a weird filter that looks like what you want it to look like, And like you just can't ever, you just can't trust anything coming out of anybody's mouth that someone with a reasonable attitude went through it and figured it out. And that's that. You're right. It's a reasoned truth that I think that you're missing, and it equals a lot of mistrust.
So maybe that rounds us out to talking about this, the NFL players, either kneeling or not coming out for the Star Spangled Banner, that kind of stuff. So I saw a lot of discussion about this, and I think the question is, how do you talk about those types of things reasonably? Right? Like you have groups of people, it's an extremely disrespectful thing to our flag, to our veterans, to our country. Other folks who look at this and say, not only is our freedom to do so, but we are trying to draw attention to something that we think is important, and why wouldn't we use our platform to do that? Like what kind of person, if we feel like it's important, who bails on that in this context? And so, like, what are the earmarks of a Christian looking at hard conversations or amped up conversations, especially ones with big that are weighty, that have big consequences, and that seem to draw fire from both sides. How do we have a right conversation? How do we look at things? How do you go about having a right conversation? What are the medium to do so? How do we digest those types of things before we open our mouths? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I know I've have attempted in the last few years to be more along the line of James, slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to become angry. Because almost every time my initial thought is wrong,
right?
Or either wrong or flawed anyway.
Yeah.
Not reasoned, right? Not completely reasoned through and gone through.
Exactly. It's a reaction. Well, yeah, you're a bunch of blah, 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 and they're like, well, that's not really what I was doing. And that's what you're seeing a lot on the social media, people responding back and forth and even like, I heard people on the radio today. I went to a sports channel. It's just okay. Let's just talk. Well, of course, it was a sports event, but and I couldn't get away from it. I finally just turned on music, and it just seems like everybody's arguing about everything that has nothing to do with anything,
right?
And they're throwing out First Amendment and this stuff, and I'm like, well, the First Amendment isn't mean I have to like what you do. It just means the government's not going to arrest you,
right?
I mean, so even that's like those are both sides are blowing everything out of proportion,
right?
Which doesn't answer your question. That's why I've just remained silent more and more on things because, especially in big national things, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors when they say, here's how we're going to do this, and it's going to cause a reaction. And I don't want to be a sheep.
Right.
I don't want to be led up to we'll rile up the base on this one. And it's like, I'll let you know when I'm riled up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. I'm the base. I will tell you when I'm riled.
Exactly.
That's actually okay. So if I can take away things that you can apply to that, then the first one would be is we're going to be slow to speak. And reasoned, right? So it's foolish to let someone play you like a violin. If someone can say, we're going to do this to rile up this broad group of people, and you allow people to play you like a violin, you just fell for it, right? So you shouldn't be there's nothing about a Christianity or following Jesus that should say we can easily fall into a group of people who can be played like a violin. That isn't how we do things.
Boy, if I swear my Facebook's loaded with these dudes. I mean, they got these dudes all tuned up where I'm getting Facebook feeds where like this dude has commented on People for Kaepernick, Facebook pages is the name of the Facebook page. And he has no business there. He disagrees with that wholeheartedly. And here he is making comments. I'm like, what are you doing? Cause I think that Dan is completely right.
What was that? Dan, I got that on tape, buddy.
Mark that.
I totally expected to be disagreeing with Dan in this discussion 2 minutes in. If I'm being honest, I thought me and Dan are going to be on the opposite sides of this deal. I can feel it coming. And but he's completely right. You're missing a completely reasoned conversation. And here's the thing. With the information available, it's not possible.
Right.
It's just not, it's not possible. You cannot have a reasoned conversation because all the facts, I don't know the dude that started it. I don't know why the dudes are doing it now. I know why people are saying, I don't know those guys. I haven't met them. I don't know whether they're just look, this is just a thing for me and I gotta do something. And I'm in earnest and I just want to do something and I don't know what else to do and so I'm gonna do this. And I watch veterans across the way. They're like, look, my buddies died for that man's ability to do that. Just that. I don't have to like it. I don't have to love it. He ain't going to get arrested, but I'm telling you what, I died so that man can do that. And I'm like, I think that sounds right to me. I don't know. There's just so much going on that I'm like, I can't, without knowing anybody individually in it, talking to anybody on why they're doing it, what their motivation is. I'm with Dan. I have a knee-jerk reaction to it. There's no doubt. But overall, I just don't know that I could come to a reasoned to stick my flag in anywhere. I'm just look, at the end of the day, I have to try. I'm trying to love you guys and figure out how I can do that on both sides and do it well.
Right.
And you're basically saying I have to define my love by my stance on what's going on right now, and I'm not going to offer that up.
It's I'm listening to the radio and they're making people feel guilty if you don't like the fact someone kneeled. That's their free speech. That's their First Amendment. I'm like. that doesn't mean I can not like that. You're right. I mean, I don't know all the details, but I know that there's something in my gut that says I just don't like what they're doing.
Right.
You know, whatever the issue is. I mean, I just don't care what the issue is. Like, I don't think it's people like, well, you're disrespecting the military. I thought that flag represents a lot more than the military. I say they're disrespecting me. I'm an American. That's my flag. You know, it's my country. So I would prefer them to find another way. However, it is also quite effective because everybody's talking, maybe not about the issues they want, but at least it started some more conversation. As I say that though, I'm thinking it's just riling up the hate back and forth. So maybe it's not real conversation.
Well, and that I think is, maybe a second potential principle here, which is if you're going to spend time interacting with this thing, why don't I do my best to try to figure out what they're actually intending to do and maybe not what they're succeeding at, right? So like here's what I've gathered from the conversation so far is it is not their intention to have a First Amendment debate.
Right.
That's not what they actually care about. No one's saying, hey, I just want to see if I can test the limits of the First Amendment. And so I think that's not the intention. I think that I have a group of people who look at that flag and maybe see something different than you do. Right? Like it's a symbol of something, and what it symbolizes for you, a promise that they don't see actually being kept.
Right.
And so whether accurate or not, right? If that is a perspective that they're having and they're trying to draw attention to something of where they feel like maybe our country isn't keeping its promises, or the symbol that flag is supposed to represent isn't keeping that promise. I don't know whether that's true or not. I don't live their lives, right? So if I'm going to try my best to say they're trying to draw attention to the fact that might mean something different or be a different reality for someone, can I recognize that? I think I can. Can I recognize, however, that on the other side of that thing, the very fact that they get to have this conversation, the very fact that, the society that we live in, if you compare it relatively to even that situation to other societies throughout the world, kind of the grand experiment that America was, and the opportunity that we have to have this conversation freely, and the moment of which it's being done. Like there are other ways to draw attention to this. The effectiveness is aside, can I understand that is something where someone who cares about this country, that is something that impacts them when someone, at least from their perspective, disrespects it. I can certainly appreciate that. And so, like, the conversation is actually two groups of people, caring about something, trying to point out something that they love or that they believe to be true, that is important to them, and they're trying to draw attention to it. And so, if I can get there, then you just start evaluating tactics. Well, is this effective? Well, the truth is that like your people are talking, but they're actually not as much talking about the thing that you wanted them to talk about. Mm-hmm. Although I have read quite a few different things from different from like sports magazines and stuff who followed up, and like a lot of it sounds like excellent and really good conversations are happening between like some of these guys and police departments and communities and stuff. And that's not making part of our conversation, right? Like Kaepernick has spent a bunch of time with the police and with the military and talking through these things. And part of the choice he made to kneel as opposed to turn or do something else was in deference, in his mind, in deference to, the fact that people did serve and die and that there is great opportunity in the United States, but like we're pushing ourselves to be better. That's his perspective on what he's doing versus other things he could have done, like not face the flag at all. Right? And so, again, I think you can start to, which is largely what we're doing, is talking about the method here. But I think Christians are probably well served by saying, what are people actually trying to talk about? And if I can ignore the methods for now and recognize that this is something of value and that people's experience is reflecting what they're talking about, then I think that helps us engage in it differently. Then maybe I don't spend as much time talking about the method, because here's what I'm afraid is that trying to change methods and things like this is the same thing that tries to change people's behavior without having the gospel do it. It just says, here's the law, you need to do this differently, and then like, I'm not sure you actually gained the thing that you wanted. I'm not that you changed hearts, I'm not sure necessarily that you changed minds, you just kind of enforced behavior, which is a bit of the opposite of what we're going for, and frankly some of the stuff that the flag represents. And so, do you think it's at least fair to say, like, can I try to see whatever's going on in the best possible light and then work from there? Can I check people's intentions first?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can. And I mean, the thing that I have the hardest time with, and this is going to come from obviously my experience in life, which does not across the board represent how everyone lives in this country, and I'm not so foolish to not know that, right? But like how one thing compares to the other is where I have a hard time grasping. Like sometimes I'll run into these dudes where, especially people that like to protest, and they do a protest that like doesn't actually match up with the thing that they're trying to draw attention to, you know. So they're like, hey, you know, we want to turn everybody's thoughts towards bicycle safety. People are getting hit on bicycles, and we need to protest this until this becomes better. I'm gonna strip naked and tie myself to a tree. And I go, what does that have to do with biking? You know, like I'm not picking it up. You know what I'm saying? I'm not understanding. Like it certainly does draw attention to you and what you're doing. But like how that relays to the bike thing is where I have a hard time doing it, right? And so like the whole kneeling thing, like I get it. I don't know how else you'd manifest that in a sporting event, you know, to try to tie it in better. But like I was confused for the longest time on what exactly we were actually, you know, the whole movement was trying to do, what it was trying to draw attention to. I could not figure it out for any reason, because the kneeling doesn't actually represent anything to me. You know, until it takes a bunch of backstory and explaining for it to come up.
All right. So the things we got. How do we have good conversations here? We're gonna be slow to speak. We're gonna try to what was it?
Quick to listen.
Yeah. Quick to listen. Try to let's at least start with thinking the best of people, right? Mm-hmm. Try to figure out what they're actually trying to talk about, and let's engage in that level. And although I think it doesn't mean you have to completely stay out of the method. I think we are well served by recognizing what people actually care about. And recognizing that people don't always express themselves in the best way. Right? Like,
I have even a little bit of grace for the way that it got handled.
Yeah, right? Like there's I don't know, it's happened a million times in my marriage, right? Like, I've done something to draw attention to the fact that I was upset about something, and it really wasn't the core of what my deal was, or I expressed it in such a foolish way because I did not know how to communicate well what was happening. Right? And then at the time that someone stopped and listened to the thing that was actually happening, and it took me 30 minutes of conversation, and I finally got it boiled down and got to say, you know what, baby, it boils down to this. This is the thing. And then we had very productive conversations and resolutions. But like, if both sides of a discussion, no one's willing to sit through and be patient and say, look, I'm going to give you grace on the method. Can we talk about where this is coming from? And try to get down to that. Like, that's where we get kind of our Facebook stuff. And we're talking about rights, which is, and you're right, Dan's right. It's not a rights issue, but like, we're just grasping at stuff that like, you would want to violate rights. You're a bastard, right? And it's like, you're not even talking about what we're talking about.
Well, no one is saying, okay, how do we improve this then? I haven't walked a mile in your shoes. You know, I can't say I can identify with what you're going through. How do we fix it? Okay, I understand you're angry. Help me help you. Right?
Yeah, right.
You know? I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she's on a track to become a dentist. And so she has, you know, conversations with people once in a while. And she said, you know, it occurred to her the other day, this isn't the racism thing, but the sexism thing. Every single time she mentions that, everyone assumes she's going to be a dental hygienist.
Oh.
You're going to be the assistant.
Oh, right.
And she's like, well, no, I'm going to, I've scored in the top 2% of the nation. I mean, I beat everybody on, I'm going to be the dentist, right?
Yeah.
But even in Africa, we talked about, an assistant, great. so, which makes me, it's not an American thing, it's a people thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's, races tend to look down at each other, no matter what country you're in.
Right.
And a lot of times men tend to look down at women. No matter where you are. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. So how do we fix it? What do they want? What can we do to improve the situation?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the core of the thing, right? Like, at some point, your daughter can get really upset with people if she wanted to for such thinking. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, you have and if we think it's unfair, it's unreasonable to think that, well, if you're going to be the lady, you must be the assistant. Certainly we're beyond that. But like, the truth is that actually is not likely to change the core of what people think, right? So like,
right.
How do you change the core of what people think? I don't know that sharing the gospel is that much different, right? Like it's the way that you change minds and hearts is that you say true things, and you say it because you love people, and you continue to have conversations, and you recognize where that meets them and what that looks like in their life. And like the way that we constantly think of gospel conversations, I don't think there's any reason not to associate that with every other conversation you have, because every conversation should be actually filtered through that context. And so can we think about, if I want to change this person's mind, how do I actually do that? And can I look at it and say, some people are speaking from ignorance. Like they're just flat out, they don't know. And they don't even have the context to know it well. And I know that there's an assumption that says, hey, look, we're beyond this. I feel like we're not. We wouldn't still be having these conversations all the time if we were beyond this on both sides of the discussion. If people were dealing with each other with grace and reasonable and saying, look, we still haven't met here. Here's how you can understand what's going on. And I get sometimes it takes powerful things to jump people over hoops. Like sometimes we are so blind until the light is so bright that you have no choice but to retake stock of what actually is going on around you. And so like, I actually don't mind, if you're finding a way to draw attention that is not violent and that is like, allowing you to have a conversation that you have, whether this is the appropriate time to do it is I think a worthy question, but like, I don't know, I couldn't ask much more for someone who's saying, look, we need to have a better conversation around this. But like, it's just, are we giving people the benefit of the doubt here and saying, you're after something good, or you're something that you think I don't understand. Okay, I want to understand it.
Something occurred to me a couple weeks ago. I was talking to a gentleman who's African American, and he was talking about the racism that's out there, and I tend to, as a white guy, I've never experienced this. I always think when they're talking about, well, you don't know what it's like to get in a car and drive and be pulled over. You don't know what it's like to fear for your children leaving the house or whatever. And I always tend to think, oh, come on. Every time you're in a car, you're not pulled over. Every time, you're in a store, people don't accuse you of shoplifting. That doesn't happen every time. So I go to the extreme.
Right.
And I think you need to lighten up. But as I'm having this conversation with this guy, and it was a very good conversation, it suddenly occurred to me, I thought, wait a minute. How many times, let's say my dad throws forks at me. How many forks does he have to throw at me in my lifetime before I say, my dad throws forks?
Right.
Maybe 2, 3? I don't know.
My dad's a fork man.
Exactly. Or whatever it is, And I thought, well, how many times does he have to be pulled over unnecessarily to think, or have his friends pulled over, or whatever, to at least it becomes in the back of your mind.
Right.
I've never allowed myself to really go there.
That's true. And how many times would I put up with that? You know what I'm saying? Even the one time, I'd be like, this was wrong. This was just flat wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, you're right, to be able to defend where we're at, it's easy to paint things with broad brush, and you're right. Yeah. Like, say, hey, this happens to you, doesn't happen to you all the time. You're overreacting.
Yeah. Grow up. That's never happened to you.
Yeah. Right. And so, like, regardless.
Maybe it's happened twice.
Yeah, is that right? And to Mike's point, isn't that enough?
Yeah. It's never happened to me.
Right. And actually, so that's a good point, is that like, I see it so my lens is it doesn't happen to me. And so that's how I look at all interactions, is I don't have any reason to think that it happens to everybody else because it doesn't happen to me. I get that other people's circumstances are different, but I don't know what it's like for that to be the case. Mm-hmm. And so, like, really everybody who says this is a problem is untrustworthy? Come on. Like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, everybody is trying to perpetuate a lie. Even look at the football teams where, like, they all decided to stay in the locker room. All right? And I get, again, whether I agree with the premise of that or not, are you telling me everybody on that team, like, is blind to this? Guys who are constantly, they live together, they're serving, they're working together, they're fighting together in a football game, they're spending like 9 months out of the year together, and they look at each other and say, you know what? Like, we're all blind to this thing? Like, I feel like they'd get it way better than I would. And so I think to myself, like, sometimes you have to humble your own circumstances and say, am I willing for something that I believe to be true to all, that their situation is also true, right? It doesn't make mine false, Because that's I can only be held to what I see. Am I able to listen to someone that says, hey, you know what? This is actually what's going on for me. And it doesn't mean that the truth can't just be one thing. It's just like it actually is happening differently for these people. This particular groups of folks or these situations and circumstances. And so like, how can I look at such, actually I feel this way too when I look at people on, even from a political spectrum, right? If I look at 50% of the nation and they believe politically something different than me, like, do I really believe that everybody's nuts? Right? That everyone thinks about things through the wrong lens? Or is it possible that because we agree on certain things that they value, they're just trying to solve problems differently? Or they don't believe something. There's just a point in time where because I believe this, my trajectory went this way and their trajectory went a different way. And so like, the truth is that like, I don't want to be conciliatory just for sake there, even though Paul says to try to keep peace. But I keep peace by saying, all right, we can agree on this. Let's at least, now we can have good conversations about it.
Yeah. And I don't know how do you help the situation? We'll go back to my dad.
Yeah.
Once it's ingrained in my head, my dad throws forks. What can he possibly do to get that out of my head?
Yeah, right.
He can't. I mean,
6 months, you're like, well, he's staved off the fork throwing, but I'm not willing to take it off his claim to fame.
Yeah. Next time, he'll probably get me next time.
Yeah.
I know I see his hand near that fork.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, it's hard to get a trust back that says, hey, I'm no longer a fork thrower.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you are still.
And the thing is, some people are fork throwers.
Yeah, true.
You know, I mean, there are racists out there.
Right.
I'm not one, I would like to say. But how does someone know that?
See, that's the thing is like I'm an ignorant one, right? Like I'm almost a racist by proxy of the things that I don't know well. Like it's not on purpose. You know, but like some of the things that you have to go through being a black man in America, I will never know that. And like some of that's on me for not taking the time to try to figure it out. you know?
So I do think there's a bad, it's easy to lump terms here, right? Like, is it really the same? Like, I know that we say that to try to get people to understand that, like, there's actually might be a blindness to you, right? There might be things that I don't know the difference.
Maybe that's what I am saying. Like, there's a blindness to me.
Yeah.
And like, almost to the point where I'm so blind on it that I don't even know where it is.
Right.
Because if I did, it wouldn't continue to be a blindness.
So you're right understanding in that. So that's where I would say we're not furthering the conversation by putting you in the same category as a guy who actually hates people of a different color.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And so like, I get it. That's another thing where it's the efficiency or good use of the term. It's like, hey, we're trying to scare people into saying you have latent tendencies of which in the right circumstances you would hate a man because his skin color is different than yours. Right? And so like that is a falsehood that is being perpetuated under a sense of it's distinct from blindness, right? It's distinct from ignorance, and we need to have humility that says, I don't know everybody's circumstances. I want to learn. I'm willing to learn and recognize if I have blindnesses, because why would I want to stay blind?
Yeah.
Right? But that's different than lumping in categories of people that actually like actively hate other people. And I get that the impact to someone on the other side of that won't feel like that. But if you want to further a conversation, I think you're asking people to make nuances. You need to make nuances on the other side and say, this is not actually the same person. It's not the same group. It's not the same circumstance that I'm saying hatred versus blindness. Especially people who are saying, look, fine, if I'm blind because I'm never in that circumstance or that situation or this societal perspective, then I want to know the difference.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think that's where some of the conversation is halting, is because unless you agree that I'm a racist, unless I agree that I'm a racist because I have potential blindness in my life, we're not willing to have a conversation with me. And that's stupid. That's really false, right? Like, they're sitting at your door saying, if I'm blind, I want to know it, and I'd like to be able to have a conversation and figure out how do I help? How do I fix it? How do we actually understand each other, and so we understand where we're coming from? And if you're not willing to have that, unless I agree to a term that is specifically and intentionally inflammatory, so that you feel like you've dominated the conversation on me, like, that's actually not trying to help. And so, like, a lot of this comes down to not necessarily prerogative, but effectiveness. Like, yeah, you have the right to choose to do this in whichever way you want. I actually have qualms as to whether it's effective. Whether you're actually talking about the thing that you want to talk about, whether you're getting the message across that you want to, or, and some of the stuff that the president says, like, falls in that same category, right? Like, fine, you won a tit for tat with somebody in your perspective, but like, you actually didn't further the ball on the thing that you wanted to accomplish here. And so like a lot of that breeds it's a lack of control, and it's a lack of saying, do I win an argument or do I want to solve a problem?
Yeah.
I win a lot of arguments with my wife, but I find that like it'll eventually catch up to me that I won those because I'm quicker, because I speak a little bit louder and a little bit faster, and I know how to use words well. And I don't solve problems sometimes as I win arguments, and I feel that 3 months down the road when I didn't do it right. And so I would broad question, and this probably goes back to our principles, how a Christian deals with something. Are you trying to solve a problem, or are you trying to win an argument? And do you know the difference? And you won't know whether that is until you've actually determined what is the actual problem that's at play here, as opposed to do I just not like what this person is doing? Because that's not like a long-term problem. It's just a preference.
Once again, though, this is what I hate about these things. It's like I'm not a deep thinker, right? And so I know that about me, and like I wish it wasn't the case, but it is. And so like I can literally go through Facebook and think that there's 10 different reasons for this discussion. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a First Amendment thing, it's a rights thing, it's a racial thing, it's a respecting the soldiers thing, and like I'm reading the whole thing going, I have no idea what this thing is. Even if I wanted to know, even if I put thought into it, like I'd just be like, I literally cannot fish out
what the actual core issue is,
what the core of this thing is. Like I think I could answer some questions if you went by like a 10-point question deal. I could probably say yes, no, and maybe. But like at the end of it, where after we've talked about it, it seems like it's pretty reasonable to me that you know what the issue is. But like the way that information is presented to me, I just sit there and go, I have no idea what's going on here. I don't know what am I inflamed about? Am I mad? This guy's mad. Would he be mad for a ridiculous reason? No, that doesn't make any sense. People get mad for good reasons. Okay, so this guy's got to have some weight. And then I start handing out weight to people merely because they were upset. Because I think, why would everyone get this fired up for no reason at all? And it turns out some of them just do.
There's an article in the Christian Post that says failed doomsday prophecies could lead people to reject Jesus Christ. Mike, do you believe that?
No.
Dan?
I suppose if they don't know him in the first place and they assume that represents Christianity, yeah.
Mike? Dan says you're dumb.
Actually, after hearing Dan speak, I'm with Dan. Someone offer another opinion. I'll agree with that one.
I'm inflamed as well.
So now, I don't care. Who writes an article about this? I don't care. It's a bunch of lunatics, a bunch of idiots. They're saying God says no, you ain't gonna know the thing. They're like, I'm gonna know the thing. And so like then they get them more press and they write about them. They're like, hey, big surprise, they were wrong again because they tried to say a thing about a thing God said you don't know the thing.
Question: Do we have responsibility to defend core doctrine against this?
Nope.
And how forcefully?
Nope. Zero.
Mike says no.
Yeah. It'd be like, here's the thing. It'd be like my dog going over and pooping into the neighbor's grass and me trying to defend my dog's behavior. Here's the thing. He's a dog. He's just gonna do untrustworthy bad things. And people that try to predict the end of the world are exactly in that category.
Right. You know that. But like a broad population who don't love to follow Jesus, who know anything about the Bible, do not know that.
Yeah, but I didn't see. No one grabbed onto it. Like there might have been 10 idiots that are willing to grab on the next fancy train coming by. But like I didn't see 10,000 people selling their crap moving to Utah.
No, that's true. Nobody believes this.
So
actually, that's not true. I know a few people that do.
Right.
Wait,
personally?
Yeah.
Well, they were down for the end of the world this time around.
Yes.
Oh man.
Did you call them?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we talked about it. We did. Yeah, we talked about it. So, Dan, what do you think? Responsibility to advertise against this thing or fight this doctrine in a public sphere?
I want to say yes, that we should. I mean, like any false teacher, you want to say, hey, by the way, be careful with this stuff. That's my initial thought.
I mean, aren't you just giving it weight by giving it attention?
It already has attention.
No.
Yeah. So again,
hold on. Here's the thing, Ben. You read a lot of weird crap. And
No.
when you come at me and be like, there was an article written, it could be by like TomSanders.com.
No.
And you just happen to follow this weird hippie on the left coast that makes all these things up.
No. It was this was carried. Every major news network carried this.
I didn't hear it.
USA Network carried it. USA Today, CNN, at least on their websites, everyone had a pseudo front page story on it.
Here's the thing. I mean, I didn't hear anything about it until you just brought it up.
You get your news from the bathroom stall.
Well,
from whatever some guy scratched in there. You're like, oh,
hey.
I see Heather's falling on hard times again.
So here's what I'm saying: is the regular Joes that I hang out with don't give these dudes no weight. It's you Flanderers that are trying to spin this thing in a tornado and make it bigger than it is.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. So, like, I would say that there is a contagion of office folk who like don't do anything but waste time at work and not work and read news and take this kind of thing in.
Here's the thing. I'm the Jesus resource at my workplace. Uh-huh. Not one person came to ask me about this.
Okay.
Not one person.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, no one came and asked me about it either.
Dan?
It's Christians talking about it.
Did you get any phone calls?
No.
That's true.
I tried to buy a camper.
Wait, in response to this?
No, but the timing, hey.
I might as well live longer.
Maybe. I don't know why they're selling stuff.
Okay, so you fall victim to the same thing I do. Just because someone said it, obviously it's worth saying. And I'm saying these fellas literally had less backing than the end of the world, the guys that were 6 years ago. Those dudes were picking up steam. They had a bus and a billboard. I mean, they were moving.
They had some inertia.
Yeah, they had something. These dudes, I mean, first of all, if you're going to make it into the world prediction, you've already had a fail run. Somebody's had a fail run in the last 6 years. It's too soon. You know what I'm saying? People, they don't forget that stuff. When you claim it's the end of the world, you get a bunch of people on board, and then it doesn't go well. They're like, you know what? I've seen this train come around before. I ain't getting on this time.
Like, what is there to gain from that? Why would you put a date out? Is it just pride, ego, arrogance of, hey, I'll get my name mentioned, or?
Yeah, so.
Are they
I mean, for
stuff?
what? I mean, literally 3 seconds of fame. I guess Bill was right. I mean, what really is going to happen?
Yeah, so actually, that's true. Let's say you were correct. Like, as soon as the thing happened, there is no glory to you ever again.
No. I'm so glad I sold my stuff.
There it goes. Is that the sound of the end of the world, Mike?
Yeah, the Lord, He don't do the trumpet thing like the Bible says. If we're just going to ignore we're going to ignore most of the Bible. God just goes with a straight inferno out of a flamethrower. Or the TV that the broadcast has been lost.
So here's the thing: is like again, if I'm gonna follow kind of our rules of conversation when it comes to a debate, is like I do believe that there are people who believe very firmly that God can arrange things in the universe to do as He pleases. They believe in a strong sovereignty of God, and that the heavens and earth reveal things about God, Paul style. And so it is quite possible that He would line things up to reveal things to His people. And I think they look for those things because they feel like they are faithfully listening or watching for the things that God has had us watch for. If God is going to speak, I would be a fool to shut the priest up, right? What is it? Both Micah and Amos style. Quit shutting up the priests. And so I think there are people who are attempting to be faithful. I think the people that are then trying to track those down feel like they have a responsibility to share it with others so that we can, with a core towards evangelism. Now, here's the thing. I don't see a lot of that happening. For the folks that actually know it, have they actually done everything that would reflect, I just know the world's gonna end. And so I'm tearing clothes and yelling in the streets.
Right? You don't find this guy desperately cleaning door to door in the middle of a mall and just begging and pleading and crying and being like, please repent, know Jesus Christ, follow me and what is joy to come.
Yeah.
Like these are none of the posture that you see from people that are predicting the end of the world.
They're still paying rent. Like, here's the deal. Here's the thing that you should respect about the Harold camping group of folks. Not camping himself, but like the followers. Like, those dudes did actually sell stuff. Now, some of them bought nice cars, so that's false. That's a false way of living the world. But like, there's like a contingent of those people who bought into it, sold everything they had, and like committed their life to telling people about Jesus. And I love that. You were just led freaking astray by a bad date.
So, but here's the thing: is the thing that like if we're gonna have a reasonable conversation about this, let's say, look, you say that like they're pursuing a truth about Christ and God because of their high view of God's sovereignty and the way He's organized nature,
yes.
Right? Where did you get the idea in the first place that He's a God to have high sovereignty and that He has organized nature?
Scripture.
Okay, so here's what I'm saying. If that exact same scripture says you ain't gonna know, I don't know how you come out with this.
Yeah, so here's my basic summation of how people get to these types of things. Is the stringing of they have a high. Here's the deal. They have a high value of scripture. But they have a propensity to use it in ways that otherwise fit the things that they think, which everyone's guilty of. Right. But like they reject primarily context, right? They refuse to have things sit in context. They read looking for something and then it jumps out and they're like, yes. And then when they see, I like connecting similar things. If God acts one way here, Do I expect him to act consistently, especially when words or things are true? And how can those two things inform each other? Yes. I think you should do that. There is a contextual benefit to that. But like a saying these are talking about the exact same things and ignoring that neither would mean anything to the people it was written to, like that's blindness. So there's a self-centeredness to it that says the Bible is exclusively for me at my time for my personal benefit, and ignores the fact that there are like your church family, your brothers and sisters throughout time benefited from the scripture. How did this otherwise impact them? So it's bad exegesis, it's bad context. But it is a high value of scripture. This is where you gotta be careful, right? Cause like I wanna write those guys off and I say, look, you're disregarding the Bible. I have not seen a guy to a man explain to me how Jesus says you are not gonna know it and they still say we will know it. In fact, I was in, that Many Hands for Haiti thrift store today and there's a book there that says, 99 reasons why you will not know when the end of the world is. And I'm like, this book is too long. It's too long. Jesus, and so here's what I thought. I thought, I'm gonna love this, man. If I open this up and it says chapter 1, Jesus said you won't know. Chapter 2, Jesus said you won't know. Chapter 3, I thought this is gonna be great. He did not do that. He actually produced 99 reasons and I was disappointed in him. I feel like he didn't do it right. But like, I've not seen a man be able to describe that. But like, that's generally what's happening is we're saying I have a high value of scripture. I trust it. I believe it. That's why they're willing to say, that's why, I can believe this date is because I believe scripture. The problem is that they're reading scripture poorly. They're just yanking it out of context. They're looking for things and they're stringing things together. We talked about this actually, we're studying through Micah, with a group of fellas and like, when it came to the Jews trying to identify the Messiah, they were willing to find this answer and however they had to stretch it so that they could have a Messiah that they wanted. They wanted someone who'd kick tail and who would help them overthrow Greece or overthrow Rome or like liberate them and give them their homeland back. Like, because they wanted that so bad, they were willing to stretch some of the prophetic things that undergirded their understanding of who the Messiah was. And so they accepted people they shouldn't have, right? Like the Hasmonean, revolt comes from people who like agreed to someone who didn't come from the right lineage. He served as a priest and king. He was neither from the line of David or from the, who's the priest?
Melchizedek.
No. You had to be from the priestly line of, anyway, gone completely. Anyway, he wasn't. He didn't qualify. There's no way he could have been this Messiah figure.
Zadok,
that's right. He had to come from the lineage of Zadok. And so like,
I knew it had a Z in there. You shoved me aside. You didn't even give me any grace in there. Those are two weird names, and I came out with it.
I knew you would come up with it.
A good job, Mike, is in order.
Good job, Mike.
Solid.
But so that's the thing is they were looking for something and they wanted it to be, and so they were like anything that looked close to that they were willing to accept. And so I think that's what a lot of is happening. But again, if I'm trying to be gracious in the conversation, I think most of these fellows do believe in scripture and that because they believe in it, they're willing to put dates on things with confidence, because they think scripture is talking specifically
but do you know
to
how many outside things you have to bring into that?
I know.
To make that true.
I know, and I mean, that's why I don't believe it.
So many, Ben. So many outside things. And then, in a consistency of God thing, where I say God tells truth, except for that one time when he says you ain't gonna know the end of the world. I don't even know how you'd come close to marrying that together.
You know what? I did see someone try to tie that. Actually, you know what they'll do? Now I remember this. They try to tie it back to the temple, which is crazy cool because most of that Matthew 24, for example, is about the temple. I think there's a break there that talks about when the second coming is, and they actually just won't relinquish it and they say, look, this is actually still talking about the temple. And then I think, well, God gave like really clear signs as when the temple was going to be destroyed, so, you know, they'll say he's just being hyper-specific, say you won't know the exact time, it's just kind of this trajectory. And so, where most people, you can't get them to agree that some of that is the temple, most of the end of the world guys would say that's all temple.
Was there it was all just a numbers game, like a generations and numbers thing, not like the hurricanes or the whatever that was sparking this on, right?
Yeah, they tied, it had to do with like the alignment of the stars. It was tied to Revelation 12. Where like you see, something in the womb of a constellation. It's a bad exegesis of Revelation 12. Like the whole thing's bad. It's not good. But like, I guess here's the thing is know who you're dealing with, right? I could write these guys off and say, look, you don't know scripture. And the truth is, I feel like I know that they're reading scripture in an unhealthy and in an inconsistent way.
Well, here's the thing: is like the truth of the matter is like I've believed things that are wrong before, right? Like that's not like that's the new concept, and there's not plenty of grace to be had for that, right? But if I catch you doing this again, you are literally on purpose rebelling against Scripture.
No, that's true.
You're going to kneel next time they talk.
That's right. Yeah, you're doing this on purpose.
Okay. Hey, so before we run out of time, we wanted to talk about interacting with sheep. So when people are otherwise acting in a certain way that is not healthy for them, there seems to be two different ways of responding, and these are I get that there's probably nuances here, right? But one is to say, I can only help people who want helped, right? People who say, hey, I want to turn from this life or turn from the decisions that I'm making. Will you help me? And then we get to jump in and do it. Or if someone who's bent on destroying their lives, as a shepherd or someone who cares for people who wants to save them, like, do you walk that with them and try to drag them out of the fire? Because those are two different reactions. One is they're actually motivated and you help them, and the other one is they're motivated to do the wrong thing and you're going to force the matter and try to help and try to do it for them.
I've had very positive, loving experiences with number one. I've almost literally been destroyed by number two. Mm-hmm. I like number one. I don't know if that's holy. I just know that I like it.
So number one was the coming alongside someone who says, I want things to change, and helping them to do that.
That's right.
And number two is, like, you've almost literally been destroyed by trying to save someone who didn't appear to want to be saved.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you put it in the context of discipleship, I've had a long-standing principle I live by. I only disciple those who want to be discipled, who are open to discipling.
To being discipled.
Yes, yeah. You can't teach a non-learner. So there might be multiple reasons why they won't learn from you. They don't respect you. They think you're an idiot. They just don't care because they'd rather do whatever than Jesus. There's just multiple. It doesn't matter what it is. But when you see that they're not interested in learning it, then I don't waste my time.
Yeah.
Because there's others who do want to know, right? But then I think, gosh, I wonder how many people I've let slip because I just didn't try harder or learn their language, so to speak.
Yes.
And put more of my effort into it.
And I think that's the core of the question, right? Is like, let's say you start with somebody and things are moving on the right path, and like they show some resistance and say, look, I don't really want to do this anymore, and like that's not the right decision, and that they're prone to not thinking in the right mind, and to what extent do I allow them I basically elevate that and say, well, they've made a reasoned decision and that's what they're going to do. Like, how hard do you fight to try to keep someone to say, look, this is wrong. I will not give up on you. That's wrong. You're thinking about this the wrong way.
Well, I think it has to. I don't think they have to be. I don't think the whole pack has to travel together, right? Like you can still maintain connection and relationship, regardless of which of those two situations, whether they want your help or whether they don't, right? But like the thing is like you can't invest in a non-decision. You can't invest in a poor choice, but you can. I mean, you know how people are, right? Like if they want to follow Jesus, they do. Like their mouths tell lies and their actions tell truth. And so like if people want to follow Jesus and they want your help doing it, you'll know that. They act like they want to do it. Like they still screw up and they still sin and they still struggle, but they come back and they're like, I don't want this to be me anymore. This is not what I want. I want to follow Jesus. And you're like, I'm in. I'm going nowhere. Right? And the same person will say, look, you can talk to the same person and say, look, Jesus is the answer for these situations. And they're like, yeah, I hear you. I'm not interested in going life that route. And your answer is, I'll be there when you are. I can't help you go the other way. I can't help you run from Jesus. I'm not going to help you do that.
Right.
But I'll be here when you're ready to meet him. Because my advice is not going to change. My love for you is going to stay the same. I'm not going to help you go away from Jesus. I'll help you come closer to him always. I will love you either way, but I certainly will not I will not abide in you leaving. And so I will just stay here. I think because the problem is if you pulling people out of the fire, the problem is like sometimes, now you got to follow that fire in, and then you go up and you go down and you go up and you go down and you go up and go down. And what you really did is exactly what Dan said, is like you took all the effectiveness that you had to help anybody and literally did nothing for months except for cause yourself pain, get the person that you're trying to help nowhere, and then and bring no glory to God in any way. You had no God-honoring conversations in all of that. Because I can still love you without following you as you run away from Jesus. You can just say, we'll be right here. I still think this is the right route for you, and I still love you. Oh, tell me when you're ready, and we'll go that way.
So there's a difference, I suppose, from planting a seed and then like hovering over at night every day and saying, "Grow, damn it!" Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, here's the thing: you ever seen that work? Like, I mean, honestly, like, I mean, you can program all this stuff that you want to, but the truth of the matter is, until someone makes the decision that this is what they want to do, your coaxing and prodding it doesn't work. You can literally plant the seed. I think that's what God designed us to do. Obviously, I mean, there's a scriptural basis to that. There's to tell them the good news about Jesus Christ. You can't make them take it, and you can't make them follow it, and you can't make them want it. That's a Holy Spirit deal. I can pray on it, and so you can certainly do that. That's the love and the connection part, where you're still praying for them, and you still got the God of the universe on that situation. But like, what are you going to physically do? Hold them up? Lock them in a room?
I mean, so take it out of sharing of good news and put it into the I don't know, something more tangible, right? Someone's bent on harming themselves. Like, we step in, right? Hey, I'm gonna hurt myself. I'm thinking about harming myself. Someone steps in. Someone goes over there and says, "Look, I will physically restrain you to keep you from doing this thing." Someone wants to crawl into hell. We don't do the same thing.
Hold on. Hold on, I'm thinking.
I'm not sure that's a fair comparison, but I'm toying with it in my mind.
Well, in both situations, they have the ultimate choice, and that's what hurts. That's what makes it so painful. Is you want more than anything for them to not hurt themselves or not go on a road that will lead to their own destruction spiritually. But they have to make those choices. They have to take those steps. Because if you pick them up and carry them over to the right path, they're just going to jump off it and go back where they're more comfortable.
Right.
And
because they got there on your back anyway. You know what I'm saying? They don't even know how to get there on their own. And so like they'll jump off yours and then want to come back and still have no idea how to get there.
I mean, I got there on the back of Jesus, but I climbed there. Right? Like I said, go ahead and pick me up.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody else, like if I drug them out of there.
Yeah.
And so is there not a concept of I don't know why I have it in my mind, and I don't know that I can think of any examples that are nagging at me. But like, I just feel like I've heard stories of people just say, "Look, I'm not going to give up on you." But is the method of not giving up on them not saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this for you and drag you along the way"? I'm going to go get you and put you into school. Make sure you go there. I'm going to show up at your house every day. Blah blah blah. Like some sort of conviction that says, "I care enough about you that I'm going to keep doing this until you bend to my will." Is that not appropriate then?
Well, I think that's of a lot of the arguments that we have, especially in our culture and nowadays, is what exactly love means, right? And does love mean giving you the things that I know will destroy you, or does love mean keeping the things from you that I know will destroy you? And some of that is true with the things that we're talking about. I get it. I know what you're saying is like it seems a little bit like if we're God's people and God carries most of my burdens because he's my God, then I should be freed up to take on some extra ones, which is following some people, in some places that they don't want to go. But the thing is like the best you're going to do is drag them on the other side of the fence and have them turn and go back as soon as you turn your back on them. And that really, it was not a gain at all.
Yeah.
They know that you love them from the other side of the fence. They're just not interested in standing next to you. And you dragging them over there didn't prove anything. Can you prove you love somebody without doing that? I think that you probably can.
And the thing is, I'm trying to think of a scriptural example, and maybe I'm missing an obvious one, but I'm thinking like the ones that show up in scripture are like Ananias going to Saul, "What are you waiting for? Get up and be baptized, washing away your sin." He's like, "Okay." What if he said, "No, I don't think so."
Right.
I mean, we don't have that example.
Right.
we don't know what he would have said next.
Actually, Dan, that actually comes to that conversation that I tried to have 3 weeks ago, and I presented it very poorly. Like, but the level of what a Christian is, like what Christians define it. And if someone says, "Hey, rise up and be baptized," and they're like, "No, I don't think so." They're like, "Well, what are you doing here? This doesn't count. This is not what God's asking you to sign up for." Jesus says, "Follow me," and you're like, "Yeah,
I'm here for the wafers.
I mean, can you imagine the look on Paul's face? Yeah, that man's really gotten beaten within inches of his life multiple times. Someone walk up and be like, yeah, I don't know about this baptism thing. I mean, I just cannot imagine the look in this man's eyes like, you got to be kidding me. I've not seen it. Well, my main thought on this when you were talking about this earlier is like, I've not seen the drag somebody through bear any fruit. Ever. I've not seen it. And so I can't say that doesn't happen. Yeah. I've personally never seen it. I've seen people surrender themselves to Jesus Christ and it produces fruit that I didn't even know existed. But I've never seen human to human dragging a guy produce lasting, delicious fruit that sustains. I've just not seen it.
So if we see if we can tie this back into the parable of the sower, right, or the seeds. So if we look at, there's not really a call to stop throwing seeds, right? Like no. You're always chucking seeds. You happy about it. And you can keep chucking seeds in the same field, right? It's the field itself that otherwise determines their reaction to the kingdom. It may or may not bear fruit, but like we jolly happying along, chucking seeds. And so that doesn't mean I go into the field, I start adding quicklime. Right? It doesn't mean I go into the field and I start kind of rooting stuff up and saying, here's how you're going to straighten out your field so when I throw seeds in, it's going to be better. Right? So I suppose it is a relentless optimism of connection, of presence, and of seed throwing. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. We're going to keep coming by. However, it is ultimately, it's not my soil, to tend. It's how people are going to react to it, how they're going to react to it. So I suppose that means, maybe my not giving up on you is maybe I keep texting. Maybe I keep calling. Maybe I keep, you don't want to hear anything about me from Jesus. I still say, hey, maybe let's have coffee. Right? Because like those are the things that I can do. I can't book you a room in a rehab. I can't say I set up your baptism for next Tuesday. These are things that I can't do for you. But I can still be, smiling and throwing seeds and hanging around. And that is probably my level of right persistence. So it's not to say you either come to Jesus when I want you to in the way I want you to, otherwise I bail. That's not the answer. You can be the guy that said, I will persist in your life until death takes me. The question is what your persistent looks like. And it's largely, presence and an ever flowing, outpouring of good news, around someone in hopes that soil changes.
Yeah, I think if you had to draw it down to, I think it's connection and love, right? Like it allows me to continue to love a person even though they make absolutely terrible decisions. It is, there's something that allows their name to come up on my phone and go, I'll take that phone call, opposed to, oh sweet Moses, what is this bringing? This could literally be anything, you know? And so like when you disassociate with having to follow it, that they're run from God or they're run through the rocky soil to keep with it, right? Like I don't have to travel the rocky soil to know it's rocky, right? Like I stand on the soil that God provided me and go, I'll stay right here. When you're tired of doing the rocky soil, this is where I'll be. I'll take your phone calls from the rocky soil. I'll listen to your problems in the rocky soil. I'll offer the solution through the gospel through the rocky soil. But the truth of the matter is, I'm not following you in there. I'm not going to do that. If you need a ride out of the rocky soil, I'll come get you. But like there's no reason for me to camp 3 days there and hang out there with you and act like I think this is doing any good. Because me moving to the rocky soil, that didn't help anybody. It's you moving out that we're going for, not me coming in.
Right.
And like I said, like I've done this actually, followed people and like, when you trying to drag them and you trying to make them own something that they don't believe, when you trying to get them a faith in Jesus Christ that it's not like it doesn't work for them. It's not like Jesus Christ doesn't work for some people. It works for all people, right? But like you actually have to follow Jesus to do that. And if you don't trust Jesus, you won't do it. And so like all you can say is like, here's what I know about Jesus through my life, through the lives of people that I know, and through the scripture. This is what I know about Christ. And like if that's not enough to get them moving, then all you can do is pray that the Holy Spirit puts it in their head that was enough to get them moving. Because following them into the rocky soil, I mean seriously, what did that do you? It didn't do you any good at all.
Right. So no, that really says that you shouldn't do ministry in like a strip club or something.
Yeah, I don't see the gain. You
don't go in there trying to pull people out. Oh, well, unless you're after the ladies. So like people do that though. People go in there, like there's other ladies that will go in there and intentionally meet. I suppose they're throwing seeds.
Yes, that's
right. Yeah. They're not dragging her out. They didn't throw in the back of the car and say, "You're done stripping."
Yeah, and they're also not like, "Hey, let me strip with you." You know, we'll talk while we out there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
That's rocky soil. That's not what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? They're saying, "Look, there's other soil. There's good soil over here." I used to live in the Rockies. I know what you're saying, but there's good soil over here. You know, let's talk about it sometime.
Yeah. Okay.
But they ain't bumping heroin with them in the back and be like, now so you understand that I've been through what you've been through. Right. Like that's just not the way it works.
Right.
Right. We're not the police. We don't undercover things in that way. We're like, we have to be bought as one of you so that we have influence as one of you.
No.
We feel like the good news in itself is implicitly attractive. It is not necessary for us to like mimic your circumstances to otherwise communicate such a thing.
No, because we believe that God is above all circumstances.
At some point, you shake the dust off your feet and move on.
Profound, Dan. What? Was that it?
Well, that's what Jesus said. Go into a village, they're not listening, you shake off the dust off your feet and move on. You go on.
I mean, are you saying that the village is a metaphor for the dude?
Well, sure, yeah. There'll be some who just aren't receptive, and it's like, move on, go on to the next village.
And here's the thing: is like the truth of the matter is, if you apply that principle, it doesn't mean that you still can't care for them and hope that they do want to know Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Like you literally just say, look, I'm not going to stand in this rocky soil. You know, I got other good soil to go look at, and I got to throw some more stuff at some more rocks and you know, what my experience with this is like with certain people, like if you get a gang of folks following them, then the devil got exactly what he wanted. He took 6 people off the trail of speaking words for Jesus while they were following a guy through rocky soil. And like, it's heartbreaking to turn around and leave him there, but the truth of the matter is, God has all kinds of things for you to do. And so like, when you decide that you're going to live in that rocky soil and try to drag a guy out of it, you literally can't do anything over here anymore. There's nothing. You can't, you end up in one alone, desolate island, you know, trying to talk to one guy, and they could put you in a runaround for probably 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years. You spent your whole life chasing after this one thing and missed out on the joy, glory, and the ability to talk to anyone else about the gospel because you were intent on living in the Rockies. I don't see the fruit. And here's the thing, is I'm willing to pray about that and be really wrong about it, if that's the deal. But I haven't seen any fruit come out of dragging people out to rocky soil.
All right. Hey, if you got thoughts on that, shoot us an email, info@lifefromthepath.org, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. It's at Life from the Path, and we'd be glad to, I don't know, we crack open the Twitter box, twice a year. So, you know, you want to have a conversation. Shoot, I don't know, even old Pete's giving up on us.
Yeah.
Sorry, hey, Pete, maybe we said something offensive to Calvinism earlier. You can say something about that. you know we're wrong. We blind. But the Lord made me that way. Anyway, you bring that up, then we can discuss it on the Twitter. Also, hey, if you haven't yet, and odds are you haven't, you can sign up or subscribe on YouTube. We're actually real close to 1,000 subscribers. We're like 880 something, and only maybe 180,000 views or so away from 1 million. So that'll be exciting. Share it with your friends.
Do they give you something if you get 1 million views, or is that like not a big deal?
I think an email.
Really?
Yeah. Congratulations on your perseverance.
Well, I mean, we should print that out and frame it or something.
Yeah, we'll put it next to the thrift store priest. As if it's a certificate for him.
Although it's proportionally unwise. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got 1 million hits on YouTube. It's like, how many Facebook subscribers? 450?
450. Yeah, right on.
We gotta get some more. Hey man, go like the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Why don't you go do that? We don't actually measure by that or care about it, but like, I mean, I'd be interested at the least.
Yeah, I agree. Mike, you got some, people need advice? We got time for like one.
Okay, hold on. I wasn't directly prepared for that, but give me 2 shakes.
Okay.
I bet I can dig something up. Yeah, here we go. Oh boy, this seems daisy anyway. Here we go. Dear Life from the Path. My 40-year-old son signed up with an online dating site.
Right.
He has a 17-year-old son and has never been married. During his initial contact with one woman, she mentioned she had several kids, and my son asked if they were all by the same father. She said he was out of line to ask that question. I realize people today think one's sexual history shouldn't matter, but doesn't my son have a right to know how many other men he's going to be involved with if he becomes involved with her? Who are you? This is his mom. Okay, here we go. How does one find out this kind of information relatively soon into the relationship? Waiting until he knows her better seems like a waste of both parties' time if he's not interested in someone who brings several other families into the relationship. Relationships are hard enough when a man brings his family and a woman brings her family together in the marriage. It's harder when the man and woman have exes. Each ex increases the level of difficulty to make the relationship work. Love is a choice, and it would be painful for my son to give up a young lady he really cared for because he found out after a few dates that a future with her involved 4 or more baby daddies. Oh, wow, holy cow. I mean, does your nose constantly go where it doesn't belong? I cannot believe this is a conversation coming. My 40-year-old son, how old is this woman? The 60?
I mean, it could be 60.
Yeah, I think so.
Wait, is that the end?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So let's treat her question with some respect here. Let's assume
I can't do it.
How do you find something? Is that something that legitimately you want to know sooner rather than later? And what is a tactful way to find it out?
Well, I tell you what, finger pointer. Here's the thing: is like you getting all up in this lady's business, like how many exes you have. You didn't even marry the woman that you produced a son with. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's right. He's never been married.
You don't have an ex because you didn't marry the woman in the first place. Now, people not be good enough for my boy. He don't have no exes. That's ridiculous. Okay, I'm sorry. Back to legitimately treating her question, Ben.
Okay. Is it a legitimate question that you would want to know sooner rather than later? And if so, how do you do it?
I think it is. I mean, I would want to know anyway. I mean, how are you at, being in a relationship? If you've had multiple baby daddies, it's like, that won't bode well for me.
So here's the thing, is the issue with that is different here than potentially a different relationship, is that there's evidence that you've otherwise had multiple partners.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everyone, you date somebody who's 40 years old, the chances that they've had, they could have 10 people they dated, they could have 2. The only way you know is if you ask. The problem is that because there are 4 kids or whatever, like, it's harder to dodge that question.
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't you just say, look, does the kid's father see him very often?
Yeah. Is the father in the picture?
Yeah.
And then, I
would hope at that point she'd be like, well, there's a couple of them.
Yeah.
My first 2 are with blah, blah, blah.
For Leonard, blah, 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 he something or others.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's if you spend any time doing it, I feel like it would be all right. Now, for time, what do you think? Can you go on a date? Can you go on one date?
I would.
Or do you just say, look, this is a deal breaker? I need to know this. Is that the implication, I suppose, is to say, she says there's 3 different dads on these 4 kids, I ain't even going. Is that the thought?
I mean, yeah, she's basically saying, look, if there's too many baby daddies, then he is not even interested in going on a date. I mean, here's the thing, you're on an online dating service. Just go out once. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know anybody, nothing.
Yeah.
Just go out one time, ask questions. Why don't you act like a normal human? Stop treat it like a chess game where you're going to outmaneuver it, figure out how to beat King Koopa by jumping 3 times and shooting the thing. Just go out and say, hey man, how many baby daddies involved? They'll be like, there's 1. Okay, that's doable. Is he a pretty nice dude? No, he's a jerk face. Well, we can work on that. Okay. No, there's 5. I'm out. I ain't even going to pay for dinner. I'm going to leave now.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. Just ask a question.
And here's the deal. If the first date doesn't go very well, then the conversation will have never come up, and you've avoided something unnecessarily.
Yeah, and you know what? As long as we're on a train of thought of ways to improve your life, why don't you get yourself a friend and stop talking to your moms and have her write in a newspaper on your behalf? 40-year-old dude. Hey, mom, I have my sexual partners. This online dating app. What's wrong with you?
Hey, here's that.
Let your mom do her crosswords and cat puzzles in peace.
I don't think I'd tell mom that.
No,
because here's the deal. Regardless of the answer, let's say you end up marrying this woman or something. Like, I just don't know that my mom needs to know those types of things about my partner.
No, cleave to future wife, which means if you have any possibility of being future wife, I don't have to share all the intimate whatever things with you and my moms.
Right.
Get a trusted buddy.
Yeah. I need to know those things because I'm marrying this person. But like, beyond that, I don't think my mom needs a full dossier on whoever I'm marrying.
I'd like to talk to your son. Have him call in.
The 17-year-old?
Yeah. No, the 40-year-old.
Oh. He's probably going to say, my mom's all up in my business.
Yeah.
I just want an online date without any harassment.
She has my password, and she's always trying to hook me up with these crazy chicks who play online dragon games.
All right. So our final advice is, just if she's looking for advice, our advice is tell your son to go ahead and go on a date. And then see what he thinks. If it becomes to the point where it seems like it is a necessary question to ask, I would say date 2 is enough, frankly.
Yeah, well, her question is, it would be painful for my son to give up a young lady he really cared for.
After one date?
Yeah, here's the thing. One, it's been one date, and two, if you really care for her, I mean, what, your love is like what, an inch thick and an inch wide? You know what I'm saying? You're going to deal with her pastor, ain't you?
Yeah. So at the point where that seems like an appropriate part of the conversation, then I would go ahead and have it. But I would agree, it seems pretty easy just to say, hey, are there dads in the picture? I mean, that's pretty easy.
It's a simple question.
And, like, here's the deal. If she's real dodgy about it, then you probably don't want to continue down this line anyway.
You're 40 years old, man. I mean, just ask her. What is going to matter? They're going to tell the whole school? Just ask. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Secular says, although it might be, quote, painful for your wuss of a son to give someone up after a few dates, he should make the effort to get to know the person before asking a question like that one he posed to a complete stranger.
I mean, what is this guy, junior high? Like,
yeah.
But I love her so much.
Yeah. I saw her online profile. She likes LSU.
I think I love her, mother.
Frankly, I don't blame her for being offended because it implied he thought she was promiscuous. Yes, it did. Dummy.
It could be true.
Yeah, I mean, it could be true, I suppose.
Well, right, but here's the deal. It's an answerable question. There's no reason it's not hypothetical. Yeah. Just when it's appropriate to ask, find a tactful way and ask it.
Yeah. Here we go. She's going to get on him. Your son fathered a child with a woman he didn't end up marrying. It happens. So what if the same thing had happened to her, but more than once? I mean, that could be a possible screen.
That still points to promiscuity.
Yeah. One would think that as a mature adult, if he had feelings for someone, he would continue the relationship and see where it led. And why are you the one who wrote to ask me this and not your son? Hey, man, spot on, Abbas. Way to get him.
She's never fired up. No. She can reasonably say that to almost everybody that writes her. She chose this man to lay on.
Yeah, he's taking the full brunt of a year's worth of cowtailing advice.
All right. Hey, you've been listening live from the Path. Thanks for hanging out with us this week. Hey, the new Tim Tibbins album is out. Mike,
Who I Am. It's out last week, I thought.
Last week. Hey, it's a New Kids album. What's that? What's the song?
I surrender. Oh.
Yeah. That's a good tune. Pick that up. Tibbins is good people, and I haven't listened to the whole album, but at least that song's good.
Yeah. It's still on that electronica vibe.
I just don't like it.
Yeah, I know.
It's not my favorite vibe of stuff.
But here's the thing. If I didn't know Timmons was such a genuine dude, I mean, the songs are still great. If you take all of it and then play it with an acoustic guitar, you'll love every track.
All right.
If that's your bet. The electronics, my kids love it. Because it's all dancey and whatever, the kids absolutely love it. And that was his intended audience, not a 35-year-old grumpy man like myself. And so, God tasked him with something and he did it. And so, no one cares what the peanut gallery has to say.
Yeah, right on. All right, so pick up the Tibbins album. Hey, I've also been listening to a lot of Josh Garrels. He's a folk Jesus man, and he's an interesting collection of folks. Just give him a shot, see what you think. I'd be interested to see what you think about that. So go ahead and hook up with that's Josh Garrels. I think he's from Arizona or something like that. Anyway, that's it for now. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, be faithful in means. God will handle the ends. You've been listening to Live from the Path.